Welcome to Momentum Mind, the place where your mind meets action, and every idea becomes a step toward the life you want. Today, we're diving deep into another transformative audiobook that will change the way you think, feel, and perform. Stick with me, because what you're about to hear could shift your mindset and fuel your momentum in ways you never imagined. Chapter 1: The Hidden Fortress of Strength. A soft, silvery mist clung to the jagged cliffs of the Valley of Vitolis. Hidden within the valley's deepest hollow stood a fortress unlike any other. Its walls pulsed faintly with a golden glow, like veins of light flowing with life itself. Those who had glimpsed it called it the Fortress of Strength, though few knew its secrets. Inside, the air shimmered with energy. Every corridor hummed with a rhythm that matched the heartbeat of the inhabitants. Here, the people understood the hidden language of their bodies, the whispers of muscles, the murmurs of cells, and the signals of hormones that dictated the flow of energy through flesh and bone. A young seeker named Liora arrived at the fortress, her cloak soaked from the mist and her eyes wide with curiosity. She had journeyed far, driven by a question that had haunted her for years: how could the human body achieve its fullest, most enduring strength? The first figure she saw was Master Kale, an elderly guide whose presence radiated quiet power. His eyes held the depth of someone who had listened to the secret songs of the human body for a lifetime. You wish to be strong, not just for a season, but forever, he said, his voice soft but firm. Strength is more than muscle or endurance. It is the harmony of your body, your cells, your very life force. To master it, you must first understand the guardians within you. He gestured toward a glowing orb that floated in the center of the chamber. Inside, miniature storms raged, and tiny flickers of light pulsed like microscopic stars. These are your hormones, Kale explained. Silent architects of your strength. They dictate your energy, your recovery, your very ability to thrive. Liora leaned closer. She could see tiny figures within the orb, moving like diligent workers. Some were fast and precise, repairing structures; others were heavy and slow, building resilience. Kale explained that each figure represented a different hormone, each with its own role: the warriors of growth, the messengers of repair, the overseers of metabolism. You must learn to feed them, honor them, and protect them, he said. Neglect them, and even the strongest body will crumble. Overwork them, and chaos will reign. Balance is everything. He led Liora to a garden within the fortress, where plants glimmered with iridescent light. Each plant was a source of energy, not just for the body but for the very essence of life. Liora reached out to touch a leaf that glowed with warmth, and instantly felt a surge of vitality coursing through her veins. This is what you eat, how you rest, how you move, Kale said. Each action shapes the guardians within you. Neglect the garden, and your inner army falters. Nurture it, and they flourish. Liora spent the day wandering the fortress, meeting other seekers, each with their own struggles and revelations. She saw one person whose muscles shone like polished steel, yet their movements were sluggish, their energy drained. Another glowed with vitality but could barely lift a sword. Each imbalance told a story, a lesson carved into the cells of their bodies. At the edge of the garden, she encountered a shadowy figure, barely visible beneath a hood. It whispered to her, voice like rustling leaves: strength is not only what you build, but what you protect. A storm is coming that will test every fiber of your being. Liora's heart quickened. She felt a tremor beneath the fortress walls, subtle yet unmistakable. The golden light in the corridors flickered, and the humming of the air shifted, as if warning her of something unknown. A Master Kale approached, sensing her unease. The guardians within you are awakening, he said. But awakening is only the first step. To be forever strong, you must venture beyond this sanctuary. Out there, the world challenges every law we teach here. You will encounter forces that drain your energy, tempt you to neglect your body, and test your harmony. But it is only by facing them that your strength will become enduring. Liora felt a mix of fear and excitement. The fortress, for all its beauty and wisdom, was merely the beginning. Beyond its walls lay a world she barely understood, a world of energy, danger, and hidden potential. As night fell, the fortress pulsed softly under a sky alive with stars. Liora stood on the highest balcony, gazing at the valley stretching endlessly below. Somewhere in the mist, shadows moved, hinting at the trials that awaited her. A sudden wind whispered through her hair, carrying with it a question that echoed in her mind: could she truly become forever strong, or would the hidden forces of her own body betray her? The moon rose, casting silver light over the golden walls, and Liora knew her journey had only just begun. Chapter 2: The River of Renewal. The next morning, Liora awoke to the gentle hum of the fortress, its golden light spilling into her room like liquid warmth. She felt a strange energy coursing through her limbs, a quiet vibration that whispered of untapped power. Yet she also felt a heaviness in her chest, the subtle ache of yesterday's exertions. It was the first lesson the fortress offered without words. Strength must be earned, but it must also be restored. Master Kale awaited her in the courtyard, where the mist from the valley mingled with the delicate glow of bioluminescent flowers. He held a small, crystalline vial filled with shimmering liquid. "This is the essence of recovery," he said, handing it to her. "It represents what your body needs to heal and grow. Energy alone is not enough. Without restoration, even the fiercest warrior fades." Liora studied the vial. The liquid seemed alive, swirling with miniature sparks of light. She lifted it to her lips and felt a gentle warmth seep into her veins, easing the tension in her muscles and clearing the fog from her mind. She realized, in that moment, that the fortress was not only a place of strength but a place of balance, where every action had its counteraction, every push its pause. Kale led her beyond the fortress walls, down a winding path lined with stones that glimmered like silver in the soft sunlight. At the path's end, the landscape opened into a vast river, its waters shimmering with color she had never seen. Some sections glowed a deep sapphire, others a brilliant emerald, and still others sparkled like molten gold. This was the river of renewal, where the energy of the body and the mind intertwined. "Drink from the river," Kale instructed, "and feel the currents of your own biology. Each color represents a different element of your inner strength. The sapphire nourishes your muscles, the emerald awakens your metabolism, the gold restores your energy and resilience." Liora knelt by the river and cupped her hands, letting the waters flow over them. As she drank, she felt something remarkable. Her muscles no longer felt tired, but alive. The ache in her joint softened, her thoughts sharpened, and an invisible warmth spread from her core outward. It was as though the river had touched not just her body, but her very cells, igniting their quiet guardians into action. "This river is a mirror of your inner health," Kale explained. "The body is not simply a machine. It is a network of signals, enzymes, hormones, and muscles, each depending on the other. Misalign one, and the current falters. Nurture each, and the current flows strong and unbroken." As they walked along the riverbank, Liora noticed others drawing water and feeling its effects. Some moved sluggishly afterward, their faces tense with frustration. Kale stopped beside them and murmured a few words, and suddenly their steps became lighter, their eyes brighter. Liora realized the secret. The river responded not just to the body, but to intention, to the respect with which one approached it. A sudden ripple startled Liora. From beneath the emerald section of the river, a creature emerged, its form fluid and shifting like liquid metal. It hovered above the water, radiating an energy both alluring and intimidating. "This is the guardian of metabolism," Kale said softly. "It tests those who drink from the river. If you respect the harmony of your body, it will bless you with growth. If you ignore your inner signals, it will challenge you, showing the consequences of neglect." The guardian's eyes, liquid, glowing orbs, fixed on Liora. A wave of heat surged through her core, and she felt every cell in her body awaken simultaneously. Her heartbeat quickened, and she understood, suddenly, that metabolism was not a distant concept. It was a living force, shaping how energy flowed, how recovery occurred, how strength was maintained. "You cannot rush this," Kale warned. "Overexertion, underfueling, neglect, each is a poison to the guardians within. You must learn their language. You must respect the rhythm of your body, the timing of rest and work, of feeding and rebuilding." The river shimmered as if responding to his words, the waters pulsing in synchrony with the guardians within her. Liora felt a mixture of exhilaration and fear. Every instinct screamed to push harder, to leap into the river's depths, to harness the guardian's power, but she also sensed the danger of imbalance. Too much, too fast, and the guardian would resist. She took a deep breath, centering herself, and allowed her attention to flow through her body, noting each pulse, each tension, each whisper of her cells. Slowly, deliberately, she stepped into the water. The river embraced her, warmth and light flowing through every fiber, every muscle, every nerve. The guardian circled her, observing, measuring, testing. Then, with a sudden, fluid motion, it touched her shoulder. A surge of energy shot through her, filling her with a clarity she had never known. The aches of yesterday vanished. Her muscles felt responsive, her thoughts precise, her energy unshakable. She realized that she was not merely drinking from the river, she was becoming part of it, a living conduit of renewal. Yet as she turned to thank Kale, a shadow fell across the river bank. Across the golden waters, another figure emerged, cloaked in darkness, its movements deliberate and predatory. The light of the river seemed to dim as the figure approached, and Liora felt a cold twist in her stomach. The guardian hissed softly, a warning. "Not all forces seek to strengthen you," it murmured. "Some exist to drain, to deceive, to test whether your harmony is true." Liora's pulse raced. She felt every cell tense, every guardian within her on alert. The river that had just restored her now seemed to shimmer with uncertainty, as though warning of an approaching storm. She could not yet see. Kale stepped beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "This is the first of many trials," he said quietly. "You have tasted the river's power, but out there, beyond these waters, the world waits to test whether the strength you gain can endure." Liora stared at the shadowy figure moving closer across the river, the shimmering waters between them reflecting her own tension. She felt a shiver of both fear and excitement. The river had taught her much, but it had also shown her how fragile the currents of strength could be when darkness approached. A ripple passed through the river, sending waves across the glowing waters, and Liora knew that the journey toward forever strength was just beginning. Chapter 3: The Trials of the Shadowed Veil. The shadowy figure from the river did not wait. As dawn broke, spilling soft amber light over the valley, it moved toward Liora with a silent grace that made her skin prickle. It was neither wholly human nor fully creature, its form shifting, as if the shadows themselves had been given shape. Yet, beneath its dark exterior, she sensed something familiar, an echo of the inner forces she had just begun to understand. Kale's voice cut through the morning mist. "This is the Shadowed Veil," he said. "Here, the strength you have cultivated will be tested. Not by brute force, but by the subtle trials that drain energy, misalign harmony, and fracture resolve." The veil stretched before them like a living labyrinth. Thick fog curled between gnarled trees whose bark pulsed faintly with veins of light. The air smelled of damp earth and something sharper, metallic, as if warning that mistakes here would be paid for in full. Liora tightened her cloak around her and followed Kale, muscles already humming with the residual power of the river of renewal. "Every step you take here must honor your body," Kale continued. "Your muscles, your hormones, your metabolism, they are not tools to be forced. They are allies. If you ignore them, the veil will sense your weakness." As they entered the mist, Liora felt her energy flicker. Shadows stretched into shapes that whispered temptations, shortcuts, endless exertion, promises of instant results. One shadow mimicked her, a perfect mirror urging her to push harder, skip rest, ignore hunger, and leap forward blindly. Her first instinct was to obey. But as she felt her muscles tighten unnaturally and her heart strain, she remembered the river's lesson: harmony, not force, was strength. She drew a slow breath, feeling the guardians in her body, tiny, vigilant sparks of light, respond. Her muscles relaxed, her mind cleared, and the shadow faltered, losing its perfect reflection of her form. It shrieked silently, dissolving back into the mist. Liora realized the veil was teaching her that exhaustion and imbalance were as dangerous as any external threat. Deeper into the forest, the air thickened. Here, the veil took on a more insidious test. Trees bent low, their branches pressing close, as if trying to weigh her down. The ground became uneven, filled with hidden roots and slick patches of moss. Every movement required precise attention. Each step tested her coordination, her balance, and her awareness of the signals in her legs, her core, and her heart. She recalled Kale's words about metabolism, the unseen current that governs energy usage and recovery. Every misstep made her muscles tighten and her breath shallow. She slowed, tuned into her body's rhythm, and allowed her movements to follow the natural flow. The weight of the veil lessened. She realized that respecting her energy, using it wisely, was not a sign of weakness, but of mastery. The mist parted to reveal a clearing, and at its center stood a series of towering stone pillars. Each glowed faintly with runes that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. The shadow she had seen earlier now danced across the stones, whispering doubts. "You are not ready. You cannot endure. You will falter." Liora stepped forward, recalling the river of renewal and the guardians within. She raised her hands, letting her awareness flow through every muscle and every joint. She could feel the pulse of her metabolism, the guidance of her hormones, the resilience of her muscles, all working in unison. The runes brightened in response, resonating with her harmony. The shadow that had haunted the river emerged again, but this time, Liora felt no fear. She felt the steady power of her body as it had been nurtured by the fortress and the river. The guardians in her veins surged forward, not as brute force, but as precise, coordinated energy. She moved with purpose, each step deliberate, each breath measured. The shadow lunged, trying to drain her, to break her focus. But Liora sidestepped effortlessly, her body responding before her mind fully registered the movement. She felt the flow of energy within her muscles, the careful orchestration of hormones that fueled endurance, repair, and alertness. The shadow recoiled, unable to grasp the harmony she had achieved. A sudden flash of silver light split the mist. Liora turned to see Kale standing at the edge of the clearing, a look of quiet approval on his face. "You are beginning to understand," he said. "Strength is not only how much you can push, it is how wisely you manage what you have. Even a small imbalance can become a storm. Even the slightest neglect can invite collapse. The shadow did not disappear. It retreated into the trees, but its presence lingered, a constant reminder that the veil was only the beginning. Liora realized that in the world beyond the fortress, challenges would not always be as visible. Some would drain her energy invisibly, disrupt her hormones, or leave her muscles weak in subtle, unexpected ways. Mastery meant vigilance, attention, and respect for the intricate systems that sustained life. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the clearing, Liora felt exhaustion creep in, not from overexertion, but from the intense focus required to maintain harmony. Yet beneath it, a new confidence stirred. She could sense the guardians in her body adapting, learning, strengthening. Before they left the clearing, Kale handed her a small, polished stone. It pulsed softly in her palm. "This will remind you," he said, "that strength is built in harmony, not in force. Carry it, and let it guide you when the shadows try to draw you away from the path." As they moved further into the veil, the mist thickened again, and Liora sensed another presence, one unlike the shadow, warmer, yet powerful, watching her silently from the trees. She did not recognize it, but instinct told her it was not merely an observer. It was a force that would either guide or challenge her in ways she could not yet imagine. Her heart quickened. The forest whispered around her, alive with unseen energies, hinting that the trials ahead were far greater than she had faced. And in the distance, through the shifting fog, she glimpsed the faintest glimmer of a tower, its peak lost in the clouds. A chill ran through her spine. The veil was not finished. Its lessons were only beginning, and beyond the tower awaited a force she could not yet comprehend. Chapter 4: The Tower of Tremors. The tower rose from the mist like a sentinel of stone and steel, its pinnacle lost in clouds that swirled with a restless energy. Liora felt a shiver run through her as she approached. The air around it pulsed faintly, vibrating with a rhythm she could feel deep in her bones. It was as if the tower itself breathed, its walls attuned to the currents of energy within every living thing nearby. Kale's voice was calm, but carried an edge of warning. "This is the Tower of Tremors. It tests the very framework of your strength, the muscles that carry you, the hormones that fuel you, and the metabolism that sustains you. Few enter and leave unscathed. It will shake what you think you know about your own body." The massive doors creaked open with no touch. Inside, the tower spiraled upward, each floor filled with challenges that seemed alive, responding to Liora's presence. The first chamber was deceptively simple, a vast hall with no markings, no tools, just a floor that shifted beneath her feet. Each step caused the ground to tremble, forcing her to adjust constantly. She realized quickly that it was not the difficulty of movement that mattered, but the timing and precision of each motion. If she pushed her muscles too hard, fatigue set in almost immediately. If she ignored her body's signals, the trembling floor threw her off balance. She began to feel the invisible guardians within her muscles, tiny sparks of awareness that guided every motion. The hall was teaching her coordination, the subtle dance between effort and rest. From above, a cascade of lights appeared, streaking like fireflies. Kale explained, "Those are signals of your growth hormones. They flare when your muscles are stimulated correctly, when energy is used efficiently, and when recovery is respected. Misstep, and they fade. Succeed, and they multiply." Liora focused. She felt her muscles contracting and relaxing in perfect harmony, her heart keeping steady, her breathing synchronized with each movement. Slowly, the floor stabilized beneath her, the tremors fading as if acknowledging her mastery. She stepped forward, exhilarated by the sensation of her body responding perfectly to her will. The next chamber was darker, colder. Shadows stretched along the walls, coiling like living ribbons. Here, Liora could feel the subtle pull of cortisol, the hormone of stress, testing her resilience. A voice whispered promises of shortcuts, urging her to push harder without pause, to ignore the signs of fatigue. The whispers were seductive, and she could feel her energy begin to tighten in response. Kale's words rang in her mind, "Stress is not the enemy. Mismanaged stress is. Your body will respond, either by adapting or breaking. Listen to it, guide it, and you will emerge stronger." She closed her eyes and tuned inward, sensing the delicate balance of her hormones. The guardians within, tiny sparks of growth hormone, testosterone, and thyroid signals, responded to her attention, recalibrating her energy, steadying her muscles, and clearing her mind. When she opened her eyes, the shadows recoiled, unable to disrupt her harmony. At the top of the tower, the final chamber awaited, a circular room that glowed with a soft, pulsating light. At its center floated a massive crystal, swirling with colors that seemed almost alive. This was the heart of the tower, a manifestation of recovery, repair, and metabolic control. Liora approached carefully. She felt the crystal's energy target every cell in her body, revealing weaknesses she hadn't noticed, a slight tension in her shoulders, a subtle imbalance in her hips, the lingering fatigue from the river of renewal. The crystal pulsed brighter, demanding she confront these weaknesses. She remembered Kale's teachings. True strength was not only building what was strong, but repairing what was weak. She allowed her attention to flow through her body, visualizing the muscles relaxing, the guardians within coordinating repair, and energy circulating smoothly. Slowly, warmth spread from her core outward, the tension melting like ice in sunlight. The crystal responded, swirling with brilliant light, its glow now steady and harmonious. Liora felt a profound sense of alignment, the precise orchestration of metabolism, hormones, and muscular function. She realized that the tower's trials were not meant to punish, but to reveal, to guide, and to teach mastery over herself. Yet as she basked in this triumph, a tremor shook the tower. The crystal wavered, its light flickering. Liora felt a strange vibration in her bones, one that no amount of harmony seemed to steady. The air thickened with tension, and the shadows of the previous chambers coalesced into a single, towering figure, a dark mirror of herself, eyes glowing with the knowledge of every weakness she carried. The figure's presence pressed down on her, a weight that tested not just her muscles but her will, her focus, and the very balance of her internal guardians. Liora knew instinctively that this was the final test of the tower, not a challenge of movement or coordination, but a trial of endurance under unseen, persistent strain. Kale's voice echoed from somewhere below, distant but steady. You have learned to listen to your body, to respect it, and to harmonize its forces. Now you must prove that you can withstand the strain that comes from outside, from doubt, from unseen pressures. Only then will the heart of the tower reveal its true gift. The shadow stepped forward, and the room seemed to tilt, as if gravity itself questioned her. Liora felt every cell awaken, every guardian inside her muscles and metabolism responding with a fierce loyalty. Her breath deepened, her focus sharpened, and she braced herself for the unknown force pressing against her. The crystal flared with blinding light, and the shadow lunged. Chapter 5. The shadow within. The shadow lunged, a towering figure of darkness, yet as it approached, Liora noticed something strange. Its movements mirrored her own, reacting to every twitch of her muscles, every subtle shift in posture. It was not merely an enemy, it was a reflection, a manifestation of everything within her body that could falter: fatigue, imbalance, mismanaged energy, and hormonal unrest. The heart of the tower pulsed behind the shadow, bathing the chamber in waves of golden light that seemed to respond to Liora's very breath. She realized that the trial was not about fighting outwardly, but about harmonizing inwardly. Each guard within her, tiny sparks of growth hormone, metabolism, muscle fibers, and thyroid signals, were her allies, and they needed guidance more than raw force. She focused, letting her senses extend into every muscle and joint. She felt the pulse of her metabolism, the rhythm of her heart, the surge of hormones preparing her for exertion and repair. With each breath, the shadow faltered, unable to act independently while she remained centered and aware. Liora's mind cleared as her body responded with precision, muscles contracting and releasing in perfect timing, her internal systems harmonizing like a finely tuned orchestra. Yet the shadow was relentless. It whispered temptations and doubts, urging her to push beyond her capacity, to ignore fatigue, to disregard the signals of her body. You are weak, you cannot endure, you are not ready, it hissed. Liora felt her energy waver under the pressure. She realized that the shadow was feeding not on her muscles alone, but on her nervous system, her hormones, and her subtle fatigue, the unseen forces that could silently sap strength over time. She remembered the river of renewal and the lessons of the veil. Strength required more than exertion, it required attention, care, and restoration. She closed her eyes briefly and allowed the guardians within to work in harmony. The growth hormone surged, repairing microscopic damage in her muscles. Her metabolism flowed efficiently, delivering energy where it was needed. Her thyroid signals optimized oxygen and nutrient use, and her cortisol levels settled into a balanced rhythm, transforming stress into fuel rather than fatigue. Opening her eyes, Liora stepped forward, but not with brute force. She moved with precision, her every motion guided by the inner currents of her body. The shadow lunged again, but this time, she allowed it to pass through her awareness rather than confronting it directly. The pulse of her muscles, the subtle hum of her metabolism, and the orchestrated rhythm of her hormones created a force field of harmony. The shadow collided with it and faltered, its shape flickering as if unsure of how to proceed. The heart of the tower reacted to her inner mastery. Its glow intensified, bathing the chamber in a brilliance that reflected her alignment. Liora felt a warmth spreading through her body, a sensation unlike anything she had experienced, pure vitality, where every cell was aware, alert, and responsive. It was the tangible manifestation of the principles she had been learning: respecting recovery, balancing energy, fueling the body correctly, and understanding the signals that dictated strength. Yet as the shadow shrank before her, a new sensation emerged, an ache deep in her muscles and bones, subtle but insistent, warning her not of immediate failure but of cumulative neglect. She realized that even with mastery in the moment, neglecting care, nutrition, and recovery could invite weakness later. Strength was not static, it was a living process, a constant dialogue between exertion and restoration, energy and repair. The shadow hissed once more, and in its voice, she could hear 1,000 echoes of fatigue, overtraining, poor nutrition, hormonal imbalance, and metabolic disruption. It represented every mistake she could make, every shortcut that could cost her long-term vitality. Liora understood that defeating it permanently required more than skill, it required vigilance and understanding, a lifelong commitment to her internal guardians. With a steady exhale, she allowed the tension in her shoulders, legs, and core to release, consciously restoring alignment. The shadow trembled, then shrank further, folding into the walls of the chamber like smoke drawn back into its source. The heart of the tower pulsed brighter than ever, radiating waves of energy that flowed through Lyora's body, solidifying her endurance, enhancing her hormonal response, and embedding the lessons of balance deep within her muscles. The chamber fell silent, the only sound her own steady heartbeat. Liora felt an unfamiliar clarity, a profound understanding that strength was not measured by immediate performance alone, but by the resilience of every system that made performance possible. Muscle fibers, hormonal balance, metabolism, recovery, they were not separate forces, but a unified network. To be forever strong, she would have to honor them all, every day, in every choice. Kale appeared beside her, his eyes warm but alert. "You have faced the shadow," he said. "But it is not gone. It will return, in moments of stress, fatigue, temptation, and ignorance. Strength is not a single victory, it is a lifetime of vigilance, harmonizing the forces within and adapting to the world outside." Liora felt the weight of his words settle in her chest, mingling with the exhilaration of her triumph. She had survived the tower, mastered the shadow for now, and felt the pulse of her body as she had never known before. Yet the final test lingered like a distant storm. She sensed it beyond the tower's walls, a challenge not of muscle or metabolism, but of will, environment, and unseen pressures. From the tower's window, she could see the valley stretching endlessly, mist curling like restless spirits, and in the distance, the faint glimmer of a city she had never seen, glowing with lights that seemed alive. Something, or someone, was waiting there, ready to test every lesson she had learned, to confront her not only with the demands of strength but with the unknown forces that could unravel it. Liora stepped toward the spiral staircase leading down, the guardians within her humming with renewed vitality, yet she could not shake the shadow's lingering presence in her mind. She knew that the journey had only begun, that mastery over her body was only the first step, and that the trials ahead would demand every ounce of vigilance, understanding, and harmony she could summon. And from deep within the valley, a low, vibrating hum began, subtle but insistent, a signal that the next challenge, greater than any she had faced, was already stirring, waiting for her arrival. Chapter 6: The City of Echoes. Beyond the valley, the city rose like a crown of light and shadow. Its spires glittered with strange luminescence, reflecting a world where life pulsed in rhythm with hidden currents. Liora felt the weight of anticipation pressing against her chest. This city, she realized, was unlike the fortress or the tower. It existed not merely as a place, but as a test of how well she could sustain the harmony she had fought to master. The streets were narrow, winding, and alive. Buildings seemed to breathe, their walls shifting subtly as though responding to the energy of those who passed. Shadows stretched along the edges of alleys, some whispering secrets, others tempting with shortcuts and quick gains. Liora sensed immediately that the city would challenge more than her strength. It would test endurance, recovery, and the subtle signals of her body that so often went unnoticed. Kale guided her through the first quarter, where the air was thick and humid, pressing against her skin. Here, energy drained easily, fatigue crept silently into the muscles, tempting the body to tire before necessity demanded it. Liora felt the familiar flicker of doubt, the shadow of overexertion and mismanaged metabolism, but she breathed deliberately, drawing awareness into her core. Every muscle fiber, every hormone spark, every pulse of metabolism responded to her command. She realized that sustaining strength here required vigilance at every moment. In the center of the quarter, a fountain glimmered with liquid that shimmered like mercury. Kale gestured to it. "This is the source of endurance," he said. "Not all nourishment is physical. Here, energy flows in rhythm with recovery. To tap it fully, you must recognize the invisible drain in your body and respond intentionally." Liora knelt, dipping her hands into the liquid. As she drank, she felt her body settle, lactic acid easing from her muscles, cortisol adjusting to a steady rhythm, subtle tension in her joints melting into alignment. The source was more than hydration, it was a reminder that strength could not be sustained by effort alone. The body demanded restoration, attention, and respect for its intricate systems, but the city did not allow rest for long. From the shadows emerged creatures of fleeting light, weaving in patterns that made the street seem to shift beneath her feet. They represented stress, poor fuel, sleep deprivation, forces that could silently sabotage muscle, hormone, and metabolic harmony. Liora had to navigate carefully, feeling each guardian in her body coordinate to maintain stability and resilience. Each step demanded attention to energy use, posture, breathing, and rhythm. Misjudge any, and exhaustion would claim her before she realized. In a narrow alley, she encountered a mirror that stretched from floor to ceiling. As she looked, she saw herself not as she was, but as a map of her body's hidden states, glowing lines tracing the flow of hormones, sparks pulsing where energy surged or faltered, shadows marking weak points in muscle and metabolism. The image was mesmerizing and terrifying. She realized that the city reflected her own inner landscape. Every choice outside the fortress, every neglect or misstep, would manifest in this living map. A voice echoed from the mirror, soft yet insistent, balance is fleeting. Strength is fragile. Will you endure when no one guides you? Liora focused on the guardians within her. The sparks of growth hormone flared in response to her awareness, energy coursed efficiently through her metabolism, thyroid signals optimized oxygen flow, and her nervous system coordinated movement with precision. The mirror rippled, and the shadows of weakness dissolved into light. She felt a surge of confidence, tempered by the realization that vigilance would always be required. The streets began to narrow further, twisting into labyrinthine paths that tested her endurance physically and mentally. Every block demanded measured effort, stepping over uneven surfaces, maintaining posture on slick stones, managing breathing while carrying her own body weight through the persistent pressure of the city. Each action felt small, yet cumulatively, they were draining or strengthening her. In the center of the city, she reached a plaza where a massive tree towered above, its branches stretching toward the sky and roots plunging deep into the earth. Its leaves glowed faintly, and the air around it shimmered. This was the tree of signals, Kale explained. It represents the communication of your body, muscles to brain, glands to cells, metabolism to energy stores. You cannot ignore the messages it sends. Only by listening can you sustain strength through prolonged trials. Liora approached, placing her hand on its glowing bark. She could feel her pulse synchronizing with its rhythm, subtle signals running through her muscles and joints like whispers from the tree itself. She felt the cumulative strain of the city, the hidden fatigue, the minor imbalances in hormones, the subtle loss of efficiency in muscle function, and she consciously restored them. She visualized every fiber repairing, every hormone adjusting, every metabolic pathway flowing smoothly, but even as the alignment returned, she sensed a disturbance. From the upper branches of the tree, a shadow detached itself, descending like liquid night. It was the echo of the shadow from the tower, yet transformed, a lighter, faster, almost playful in its menace. Its approach carried no brute force, only pressure, the persistent, insidious drain that could undermine strength silently over time. Liora braced herself. The city had already tested her endurance, her recovery, and her attention to subtle signals. Now, the echo would test whether she could maintain harmony under continuous, unseen strain. The guardians within her surged, muscles tightening and relaxing in perfect coordination, metabolism flowing efficiently, hormones balancing effortlessly. She felt ready, but uncertainty gnawed at her. The echo approached, weaving through the plaza like a thread of darkness, and the tree of signals shivered in response. Liora knew instinctively that this encounter would reveal not only the resilience of her muscles, but the endurance of her inner systems over time. One mistake, one lapse of attention, and the drain could unravel all her hard-earned strength. The city seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her choice, to confront the echo, to adapt in real time, or to be consumed by the subtle pressures that threatened to sap her vitality. Liora drew in a deep breath, feeling every guardian within her awaken, and then the echo struck, not with force, but with precision, targeting her attention, her metabolism, her hormonal balance in ways she had never experienced. Chapter 7, Dance of the Echo. The echo struck without warning, a ripple of darkness weaving through the plaza, pressing against Liora not with brute force but with subtle, relentless pressure. It was unlike any foe she had faced in the tower or the Vale. This was not about movement or brute strength, it was about endurance, coordination, and the invisible threads that bound her muscles, hormones, and metabolism. Liora planted her feet firmly on the glowing cobblestones. Every muscle in her body tensed, ready, yet she remembered Kale's teaching, strength was not brute force alone, it was harmony. She closed her eyes for a fraction of a heartbeat and felt the guardians within her awaken. Tiny sparks of growth hormone surged, repairing micro-tears in her muscles. Thyroid signals hummed, optimizing oxygen delivery. Metabolic currents flowed efficiently, sending energy exactly where it was needed. Even cortisol, the subtle messenger of stress, settled into a steady rhythm, transforming pressure into fuel rather than fatigue. The echo circled her, darting with impossible speed, testing her balance, her awareness, and her ability to maintain harmony under continuous strain. Liora moved deliberately, her muscles responding perfectly to her intent, each motion smooth, each step guided by the internal wisdom of her body. The echo tried to trick her into overexertion, whispering temptations: push harder, skip rest, ignore the signals. But Liora felt the warning signs flicker in her cells and resisted. Harmony, she knew, was stronger than force. Her mind became a map of her body. She could sense which muscles were fatigued, which needed activation, where energy had concentrated and where it lagged. She adjusted instantly, letting weak areas receive more support, allowing strong areas to maintain efficiency without overloading. The echo hissed and twisted, unable to predict her internal adaptations. She realized the echo represented more than the present challenge. It was a test of cumulative stress, a reflection of everything that could slowly erode strength: poor nutrition, lack of sleep, neglected recovery, and mismanaged energy. Every subtle imbalance she had ever ignored, every misstep she had made in her past training, could have given it power. But she had learned the lessons of the river of renewal, the tower of tremors, and the city of echoes. Attention, care, and alignment made the body almost untouchable. The plaza itself seemed to respond to her awareness. Cobblestones glowed brighter beneath her feet, the tree of signals pulsed in resonance, and the echo's strike slowed, forced into patterns it could not break. She felt a new rhythm emerge within herself, a dance between her movements, her guardians, and the pressures of the city. The echo was no longer an external enemy but a partner in a complex, dynamic test of endurance. Time seemed to stretch. Liora's muscles burned faintly, but not with exhaustion. Each contraction was precise, every fiber coordinated with the next. Her metabolism flowed like water, delivering fuel to where it was needed and removing waste efficiently. Hormones surged and stabilized in waves, guiding her responses, enhancing recovery even while under strain. She realized that this was the essence of forever strength, the ability to endure, adapt, and recover simultaneously, turning challenge into growth. The echo struck one final time, faster and sharper than before. Liora allowed it to push her slightly off balance, feeling the pull in her joints and muscles, but she did not resist blindly. Instead, she adjusted instantly, letting the guardians within her absorb and redistribute the pressure. The echo collided with her internal harmony and shattered, scattering like smoke in the morning wind. The plaza fell silent. Liora's heartbeat was steady, muscles alive but not fatigued, energy flowing without interruption. She realized she had survived not by brute power, but by understanding the invisible forces that governed her body. Every guardian, growth hormone, thyroid signals, metabolic currents, stress hormones, had responded in concert, guided by her awareness. She had danced with the echo and emerged stronger than before. Kale approached, his expression a mixture of pride and caution. "You have learned much," he said. "But remember this, the echo is not gone. It represents the subtle forces that will challenge you every day. Fatigue, stress, neglect, they do not strike in bursts like the shadows of the tower or the veil. They creep, slow and persistent. To remain forever strong, you must carry these lessons into every step you take, every choice you make." Liora nodded, feeling the truth of his words in her very bones. She had glimpsed the delicate balance of her own biology, the interplay of energy, recovery, and hormonal harmony. Yet she sensed that the city had more to teach, more hidden trials waiting in the winding streets, where even a moment of inattention could unravel her progress. As the sun dipped low, casting long golden shadows over the plaza, she noticed movement from the rooftops above. Figures, silent and swift, seemed to observe her, testing her attention and awareness. She felt a thrill of anticipation, and a subtle warning pulse from within her muscles and metabolism. The next trial would demand even greater mastery of endurance, coordination, and the invisible forces that sustained life itself. The echo had been defeated for now, but the city whispered that the true journey of forever strength was just beginning, and that even mastery in one moment could not guarantee success in the next. From the highest rooftop, a single, faintly glowing figure stepped forward, a messenger or a challenger, Liora could not yet tell. Its gaze held both promise and danger, and the air seemed to shimmer around it, as if it carried knowledge that could reshape her understanding of strength itself. Liora took a deep breath, feeling every guardian within her pulse in readiness. She was stronger, wiser, and more aware than ever, but the next challenge loomed, and she could feel its weight even before it arrived. Chapter 8, The Messenger of Flame. The figure on the rooftop glimmered in the fading light, its presence shifting like liquid fire. Lyra felt an immediate pull of curiosity and caution, the faint tremor of challenge stirring her muscles and quickening her pulse. Unlike the shadow or the echo, this figure did not strike with menace or whisper deceit, it radiated intensity, a blazing force that promised insight, but demanded vigilance. Kale's voice was at her side, calm but firm. "This is the messenger of flame," he said. "It brings lessons not of weakness, but of potential. Where the echo tests endurance, the flame tests transformation. It will show you how energy, recovery, and hormonal harmony can ignite growth beyond what you thought possible." Lyra climbed the narrow staircase to the rooftop, feeling the warm pulse of the city below and the subtle rhythm of her own guardians within. Each muscle fiber hummed with readiness, every joint aligned, metabolism flowing with efficiency, and hormones surging in gentle waves of preparation. She had learned to survive the subtle forces of stress, fatigue, and misalignment. Now she would learn how to thrive, to channel every system within her for growth. The messenger of flame lifted a hand, and sparks leapt from its fingertips, hovering in the air like suspended stars. The flames danced closer, yet they did not burn. Instead, they pulsed in harmony with Lyra's heartbeat, illuminating the invisible currents of energy flowing through her muscles, the steady march of her metabolic signals, and the subtle rhythm of her hormonal guardians. "You see your body not as a machine, but as a living network," the messenger said, voice low and resonant, carrying the warmth of fire without heat. "Every movement, every meal, every breath influences this network. To be forever strong, you must understand not only how to endure, but how to transform, how to grow stronger in a way that lasts." Lyra watched as one of the flames hovered above her shoulder, expanding and contracting in sync with her growth hormone signals. She felt a surge in her muscles, not from strain, but from precise stimulation. Microtears she hadn't noticed before tingled with renewal as the guardians within her orchestrated repair and adaptation. She realized that proper growth was a conversation between effort and recovery, between stimulation and repair. Guided by awareness, the messenger stepped closer, flames coiling around its arms, illuminating her internal patterns in glowing colors. "Too often," it said, "people push blindly, ignoring signals of imbalance. Muscles grow, but energy falters. Hormones spike, but recovery lags. You must learn to fuel, rest, and activate in harmony. Only then will strength be lasting." With a wave of its hand, the rooftop transformed. Platforms rose and shifted in complex patterns, forcing Lyra to navigate them with precision. Each step demanded coordination, attention to subtle fatigue, and an understanding of how to distribute energy efficiently. She felt her metabolism responding, directing fuel to the muscles under load, clearing byproducts, and balancing oxygen delivery. Her heart remained steady, her breathing synchronized, her hormonal guardians keeping pace with every movement. A platform surged upward suddenly, threatening to unbalance her. The messenger of flame hovered beside her, its flames licking the edges of the stone, a silent guide. Lyra realized that growth required adaptation under stress, muscles must respond, metabolism must flow, hormones must signal appropriately. She adjusted, letting her body move in perfect rhythm with the shifting platforms. Each success ignited a spark within her, reinforcing the efficiency of every system. Yet the messenger was not finished. From the corners of the rooftop, twin shadows emerged, faint echoes of the previous trials, representing fatigue accumulated over time, sleep deprivation, and poor nutritional choices. They moved with cunning, attempting to disrupt her harmony, forcing sudden corrections that taxed her metabolism and tested hormonal balance. Lyra focused, calling upon every guardian within. Growth hormone surged where muscle needed repair, cortisol transformed subtle stress into energy, thyroid signals optimized oxygen and nutrient flow, and metabolism ensured her energy was precise, not wasted. She moved through the shifting platforms like water, anticipating each disruption, adapting instantly. The shadows of neglect dissolved under her mastery. The messenger of flame extended both arms, and a wall of fire surged upward around her, not destructive, but illuminating every system of her body in brilliant color. Lyra felt an incredible clarity. She understood how stimulation, recovery, and nutrition interacted, how every choice she made affected not just performance, but long-term resilience. She felt the potential to grow stronger not just for today, but indefinitely. Then, as she exhaled, the flames coalesced into a single, brilliant orb hovering before her. It pulsed in sync with her internal guardians, a living reflection of alignment, endurance, and growth. "This is the heart of transformation," the messenger said. "It will teach you how to ignite your potential, but remember, transformation requires balance. Too much fire without rest, too much effort without repair, and it will consume you." Lyra extended a hand, and the orb flowed into her, spreading warmth and light through every muscle, every gland, every pulse of energy. She felt stronger, sharper, more alive than ever before. Yet beneath that exhilaration, a subtle tremor whispered caution. The world outside the city, beyond the trials, waited with challenges she could not yet see. Strength, even fully mastered in this moment, was never guaranteed. It had to be maintained, nurtured, and defended. The messenger of flame lifted off the rooftop, leaving Liora bathed in a golden glow. Its parting words echoed, "Remember this moment. The fire within can grow forever, but only if you respect every signal, every system, every choice. The true trial is not here, it is what you do with this power in the world beyond." As the sun sank behind the horizon, casting the city in shadows that shifted with the pulse of the streets, Liora realized she had taken another step toward becoming forever strong. She had endured the tower, mastered the echo, and ignited the fire of transformation. Yet the city whispered of even greater challenges ahead, forces that would test her vigilance, endurance, and the harmony of her internal guardians like never before. And from the depths of the glowing streets, she sensed the faintest stirrings of a new presence, one neither shadow nor flame, but something that might challenge everything she had learned. Chapter 9. The Weaver of Silence. Night had fallen over the city, and the streets shimmered with the quiet pulse of unseen energy. Liora moved cautiously, her senses alert, muscles coiled yet relaxed, metabolism humming in steady rhythm, hormones balanced like a delicate symphony. The messenger of flame had left her charged with vitality, but a subtle tension lingered in the air, a signal she could not ignore. From the shadows of a narrow alley, a new presence emerged. It was neither flame nor darkness, but something more elusive, a figure wrapped in silence, moving without sound, gliding through the city like mist over water. Liora's instincts tensed. This was the Weaver of Silence, a being whose lessons were subtle, invisible, yet no less powerful than the trials she had faced before. Kale's voice resonated in her memory. The Weaver tests the unseen. It teaches endurance, recovery, and subtle control. Where fire ignites growth and the echo tests adaptation, silence teaches preservation. You must learn to move without wasting energy, to respect hidden signals, and to restore what is silently drained. The Weaver approached, its presence pressing on her in waves so faint she could feel them only in her muscles and nervous system. Liora sensed immediately that this challenge was not about movement alone, but about listening to the whispers of fatigue, the subtle drain of energy, the silent messages of hormones and metabolism. Every misstep, every ignored signal, could tip the balance of her strength. The streets around her seemed to contract, focusing attention on minute details. A slight unevenness in the cobblestones, a whisper of wind brushing against her skin, the faint tug of gravity as her muscles adjusted, all demanded awareness. Liora's muscles and joints responded with precise control, her nervous system coordinating every contraction and relaxation in perfect timing. Metabolism flowed efficiently, distributing energy to where it was needed most, while cortisol and other stress signals were calibrated to transform pressure into productivity rather than fatigue. The Weaver moved closer, and Liora realized that this test was about economy of effort. Each movement, no matter how small, had to be purposeful. Muscles could not waste energy, hormones could not spike unnecessarily, metabolism had to conserve and deliver efficiently. She recalled the lessons of the tower, the veil, and the city of echoes. Mastery required attention not just to obvious forces, but to the hidden currents that quietly governed endurance. A subtle pulse emanated from the Weaver, and Liora felt her energy subtly shifting. Tiny inefficiencies in her muscle signaling revealed themselves, micro tremors in her hands, slight tension in her shoulders, small hesitations in her legs. The Weaver's presence amplified these hidden weaknesses, showing her that even a strong body could be undermined if signals were ignored or mismanaged. She took a deep breath and centered herself, allowing every guardian within her to respond. Growth hormone surged precisely where repair was needed, thyroid signals optimized oxygen delivery, metabolism distributed energy efficiently, and nervous system coordination smoothed micro tremors. Slowly, the subtle tremors faded, replaced by a quiet, controlled strength. The Weaver paused, observing, then moved again, testing Liora's consistency, her ability to sustain balance under persistent, invisible pressure. As she navigated the twisting streets, Liora realized that this trial was about sustainability. It was one thing to survive sudden challenges like the shadow or echo, or to ignite growth like the flame. It was another to maintain peak performance quietly, steadily, without visible strain or expenditure of unnecessary energy. The Weaver was teaching her that forever strength was built as much in preservation as in exertion. A sudden gust of wind swept through the alley, carrying a whisper of temptation: push harder, ignore signals, rush forward. Liora felt the subtle pull on her nervous system, the faint drain on her muscles. She resisted, tuning inward, allowing the guardians within to recalibrate her energy, reinforcing efficiency and alignment. The whisper faded, and the Weaver's presence seemed to approve, a soft shimmer of light following its path. She reached a small courtyard, illuminated by the faint glow of phosphorescent moss. At its center lay a pool of perfectly still water, reflecting the night sky. Lyora knelt, placing her hands in the water. She felt the subtle waves of recovery spreading through her muscles, her metabolism steadying, hormones adjusting to the calm. It was the essence of the weaver's lesson. Preservation was an active process, a dialogue with one's body, where attention, rest, and alignment maintained the vitality that effort alone could not sustain. The weaver approached the pool, its presence now a calm, steady pulse rather than a pressure. It extended a hand, and a soft thread of light connected with Lyora's chest. She felt it seep into her heart, spreading quietly through her body, reinforcing the guardians within. Muscles healed not from strain, but from awareness, energy flowed not from brute effort, but from harmony, hormones balanced not from reaction, but from understanding. For a moment, the city was silent, and Lyora understood the full weight of the lesson. True strength was not only surviving chaos, igniting potential, or adapting under stress. It was preserving energy, honoring recovery, and maintaining the hidden balance of all systems within her body. But just as she allowed herself to feel this calm, a ripple ran through the streets. Shadows shifted, faint tremors ran beneath her feet, and she sensed a new force stirring, a presence unlike any before. The weaver's pulse lingered, a reminder that mastery required constant vigilance. Lyora stood, muscles alert, metabolism steady, hormones balanced, yet she knew the next trial would test her endurance and preservation like never before. From the edge of the courtyard, a faint golden light shimmered, a distant signal, pulsing with energy, rhythm, and promise. Lyora's pulse quickened. The city had taught her endurance, adaptation, transformation, and preservation. But this new presence hinted at a challenge that would demand every lesson combined, in a crucible where mastery of the body and mind would be tested beyond anything she had faced. Chapter 10, The Pulse of Gold. The golden light shimmered at the far edge of the courtyard, faint but insistent, calling to Lyora like a heartbeat she could feel deep in her own chest. Every step toward it pulsed through her muscles, a subtle reminder of how energy, alignment, and awareness had to flow together. The city around her seemed to lean closer, streets narrowing and twisting as if guiding her directly to the source. Kale's words echoed in her mind. The pulse of gold is a test of mastery. It demands that you integrate every lesson, endurance, adaptation, transformation, preservation. Here, all systems within your body must communicate in perfect harmony. One imbalance, one lapse, and even the strongest effort will falter. The light grew brighter as she approached, and she felt its energy resonate with her own metabolism. Each step seemed to draw the pulse closer, and with it came an awareness of subtle forces she had only glimpsed before: micro-fatigue in her muscles, lingering tension in joints, the delicate rise and fall of stress hormones, and the quiet orchestration of growth signals and thyroid activity. At the center of a vast plaza, the pulse of gold revealed itself fully, a radiant orb, suspended in midair, spinning slowly, radiating warmth and energy. Around it, streams of shimmering light twisted and coiled, representing cycles of energy flow, hormonal signaling, and muscular adaptation. Lyora realized that this was the culmination of everything she had learned, a living representation of the balance that sustained true strength. She stepped closer, and the orb pulsed in response, sending a wave of awareness through her body. Her muscles contracted and relaxed in perfect coordination, metabolism flowed efficiently, and hormones adjusted precisely to meet the challenge. The guardians within her glowed brightly, each responding to the pulse as if part of a living orchestra. Suddenly, the orb sent out tendrils of light, wrapping around her limbs, chest, and core. These were not physical restraints, but tests, forces designed to reveal any weakness in her alignment, energy distribution, or hormonal balance. Lyora felt her muscles tighten instinctively, her nervous system alert to the smallest signals. Every guardian responded, growth hormone surged to repair microdamage, metabolism distributed energy efficiently, thyroid signals optimized oxygen flow, and cortisol transformed pressure into fuel. The pulse of gold rotated faster, its energy intensifying. Lyora realized that this was a dynamic trial, testing her ability to sustain harmony under continuous, escalating demand. The plaza trembled faintly, echoing the rhythm of her own body. She moved deliberately, allowing her muscles to flow with the light, her core stabilizing every motion, her breath synchronized with each pulse. Misstep would not merely challenge her strength, it could disrupt the delicate balance she had built. For what felt like hours, she danced with the orb. The tendrils of light tested her endurance, subtly shifting to target muscles she had neglected, nudging her metabolism toward inefficiency, whispering to her nervous system to lose focus. Lyora responded with awareness, feeling every signal, adjusting instantly, letting her guardians act in concert. Energy flowed where it was needed, hormones balanced perfectly, and fatigue that would have overwhelmed her in the past was absorbed, repaired, and transformed into sustaining force. Then, the orb changed. Its light coalesced into patterns that reflected her past trials: the shadow of the tower, the echo of the city, the flame, and the weaver. Each lesson she had faced was present simultaneously, pressing against her systems in intricate, invisible ways. It was no longer a single test, but a crucible where everything she had learned would be applied at once. Liora felt a faint tremor in her shoulders, a remnant of past strain. She adjusted, micro-contracting and releasing, letting growth signals repair and stabilize. A surge of energy pulsed through her core as metabolism redistributed fuel efficiently. Her hormones aligned perfectly, transforming subtle stress into controlled power. She realized that forever strength was not about the absence of challenge, but the mastery of response, the ability to integrate effort, recovery, and awareness seamlessly. The pulse of gold expanded, enveloping her in a sphere of radiant light. Liora felt her body resonate fully, every muscle, every gland, every pathway of energy singing in harmony. Yet, beneath the brilliance, a subtle warning pulsed: the real world beyond the city would not adjust itself. Hidden pressures, mismanaged recovery, poor nutrition, and unnoticed fatigue would always lurk. Mastery here was a demonstration, not a guarantee. As the golden pulse slowed, Liora felt herself grounded, centered, and transformed. Her muscles were stronger, more resilient, her metabolism flowed perfectly, her hormones responded to every need with precision. But she knew the true test was just beginning. The city whispered of forces beyond comprehension, waiting to challenge not only her strength, but her understanding of balance, endurance, and recovery in a world that would never pause. From the shadows of the plaza, a figure emerged, draped in light and shadow. It carried no overt threat, yet Liora could feel the subtle pressure it imposed on her body and mind, the kind that could erode strength over time if ignored. This was a force unlike any she had faced, representing everything that could disrupt harmony in subtle, invisible ways. Her pulse quickened, muscles coiled, metabolism humming, hormones alert. She had conquered shadows, echoes, flames, and silence. Now, the final challenge approached, a force that would test her ability to sustain mastery indefinitely, to apply every lesson in a world that demanded vigilance without end. And from the depths of the glowing plaza, the figure advanced, its presence radiating a weight that Liora could feel in every fiber of her being. Chapter 11, The Keeper of Balance. The figure stepped forward, radiating a quiet gravity that pressed into Lyora's body like a gentle weight, subtle yet undeniable. Its presence was neither hostile nor inviting, but it carried a message she could feel in every pulse of her muscles, every shift of her metabolism, and every whisper of her hormones. This was the Keeper of Balance, the culmination of all trials, a force that would reveal whether she could sustain mastery beyond the control tests of towers, echoes, flames, and silence. Kale's voice, distant but steady, echoed in her mind: the Keeper tests permanence. It will not assault you with brute force, nor tempt you with shortcuts. It will measure the harmony of all your internal systems under persistent, invisible pressure. Strength is not in a moment of triumph, it is in the ability to maintain alignment, energy, and resilience over time. Liora drew a deep breath, feeling the guardians within awaken. Her muscles tightened and relaxed in perfect rhythm, metabolism flowing efficiently, and hormones stabilizing in subtle waves of balance. Every cell seemed to hum with awareness, sensing the unseen pressures of the Keeper. She understood instinctively that this trial was about vigilance, attention, and consistency, not speed or power. The Keeper's eyes glimmered with a soft, shifting light. It extended a hand, and the plaza around them seemed to ripple, sending waves of invisible resistance through Lyora's muscles. Her steps became slightly heavier, her joints tested with subtle instability, her core challenged to maintain alignment. The pulse of fatigue whispered in the background, a faint echo of stress, mismanaged recovery, and metabolic inefficiency. Liora responded with deliberate precision. She micro-adjusted each joint, allowing muscles to absorb the hidden force efficiently. Growth hormones surged to repair tiny micro-tears, thyroid signals optimized oxygen delivery, and metabolic currents directed energy precisely where it was required. Even the subtle effects of cortisol transformed stress into useful, sustaining power. The Keeper's challenge was not a threat, it was a mirror reflecting how well she could maintain balance in the face of slow, persistent pressures. The plaza shifted again, as if the city itself had joined the trial. Streets lengthened, shadows stretched, and invisible currents tugged at her body. Liora felt the quiet drain of energy in her muscles, the subtle misalignment in her core, the whisper of hormonal imbalance. Yet she moved fluidly, each step coordinated, every muscle fiber activated in harmony, her metabolism flowing like a living river of energy. The Keeper's presence intensified, probing deeper. She sensed micro-fatigue in her calves, subtle tightness in her shoulders, and a hint of nervous system strain. The lesson was clear: mastery required constant monitoring, adjustment, and care. Strength was not a singular achievement, it was a living process, requiring attention to recovery, nutrition, sleep, and the invisible currents of energy that sustained every movement. A wind rose, carrying faint echoes of all her previous trials: the shadow, the echo, the flame, and the weaver. Each lesson whispered simultaneously, testing her awareness. Lyra allowed herself a moment to feel the cumulative effects, then focused inward. Her internal guardians responded instantly, muscles repaired and realigned, metabolism distributed energy efficiently, thyroid signals optimized oxygen and nutrient delivery, and hormonal currents stabilized, transforming potential strain into resilience. The keeper stepped closer, and the plaza fell silent. "You have learned to endure, adapt, transform, and preserve," it said, its voice resonating like a low vibration through Lyra's body. "But the true measure of forever strength is sustainability. Can you maintain harmony when the world tests you continuously, when fatigue, stress, and misalignment strike invisibly? Can you protect the systems that sustain you without pause or guidance?" Lyra felt the pressure deepen, a subtle, invisible tug at her energy and focus. She realized this was not a test of effort, but of attention, of integrating every lesson into a living, ongoing practice. Muscles could falter if ignored, metabolism could misfire without awareness, hormones could disrupt alignment if neglected. Every system required continuous vigilance, even when outward appearances suggested mastery. She closed her eyes, letting every guardian act in concert. Microcorrections in muscle tension, subtle shifts in posture, rhythmic breathing, precise distribution of metabolic energy, hormonal modulation, all flowed naturally. The keeper's probing pressure met with invisible resistance, absorbed and harmonized by her internal systems. She felt a profound connection to her own body, understanding fully how endurance, growth, recovery, and preservation work together. The keeper stepped back, a faint smile in its eyes. "You have glimpsed the path," it said. "Forever strength is not a singular victory, but a continuous mastery of the invisible. The body will always demand vigilance, the world will always test. But those who listen, who respond, who restore, will endure. And now, you carry the pulse of permanence within you." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her core, every muscle and fiber humming with vitality. She understood that mastery was not about defeating one challenge or another, it was about sustaining the balance, protecting the systems, and honoring the invisible currents of strength that ran through her body every moment of every day. Yet even in this triumph, a faint tremor whispered at the edges of her awareness. Beyond the city, beyond the plaza, there were forces she could not yet see, pressures that would test the limits of her vigilance, endurance, and recovery in ways she could not anticipate. The keeper had revealed the path, but the journey was far from over. Lyra stepped forward, feeling every guardian within her pulse in readiness. Muscles, hormones, metabolism, and nervous system, all aligned, all aware. She had learned to endure, adapt, transform, preserve, and sustain. She had glimpsed the essence of forever strength, and in the distance, from the horizon beyond the city walls, a new presence stirred, glowing faintly with a force that promised challenge, growth, and revelation beyond anything she had yet imagined. Chapter 12, The Horizon of Forever Strength. The horizon shimmered with an ethereal light, neither sun nor moon, but a force that seemed to pulse in harmony with Lyra's own heartbeat. Every muscle in her body hummed with readiness, metabolism flowing smoothly, hormones balanced like a symphony, and her nervous system alive with precise coordination. She could feel every guardian within her, growth hormone, thyroid signals, cortisol, metabolic currents, all aligned and attuned. This was the culmination of every trial, the tower, the echo, the flame, the weaver, and the keeper. From the glow emerged a figure, radiant and vast, more presence than form. Its light was warm yet insistent, its aura pressing gently yet profoundly into every fiber of her being. Lyra instinctively knew this was the final challenge, not a test of strength or endurance alone, but a revelation of the principles that governed every aspect of life, energy, and vitality. The figure spoke, its voice both everywhere and within her, vibrating through muscles and bones. "You have learned to endure, to adapt, to ignite growth, to preserve, and to sustain. But now you must integrate it all. Strength is not merely for moments of exertion, it is the harmony that allows you to meet the world fully, day after day, without losing yourself." Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of energy flowing through her body. She understood that the trials had not been isolated challenges, but a series of lessons on the orchestration of internal systems. Muscles, metabolism, and hormones worked not in isolation but as a network. Fatigue was not an enemy, it was a signal. Recovery was not optional, it was essential. Growth was not instantaneous, it required alignment, nourishment, and vigilance. The figure extended a hand, and Lyra felt currents of energy thread through her limbs. Tiny signals she had once ignored now pulsed brightly, subtle inefficiencies in her posture, micro-fatigue in her legs, the quiet lull of hormonal imbalance. Yet now she responded effortlessly. Micro-corrections rippled through her muscles, metabolism flowed precisely where it was needed, hormones balanced naturally, and her nervous system coordinated every movement with exacting precision. The guardians within her flared in harmonious rhythm, reinforcing every fiber and pulse. You see now, the figure said, that forever strength is not a single achievement. It is vigilance, awareness, and alignment. It is the integration of effort, recovery, and preservation. It is listening to the whispers of your body before they become roars of failure. Liora moved forward, feeling the ground beneath her respond with gentle resistance, testing her ability to maintain harmony. Every step, every motion, every breath was a dialogue with herself. She felt the balance of energy across her muscles, the precise pulse of metabolism, and the orchestrated rhythm of hormones guiding her responses. This was no longer trial or test, it was mastery, applied in the living, breathing moment. The figure's light expanded, encompassing the horizon, the city, and the valley beyond. Liora realized that the lessons she had learned were not confined to towers or plazas, they were alive in the world itself, present in every challenge, every decision, every movement. The pulse of forever strength extended into the unseen, the subtle, and the hidden currents of life, and yet, even in this clarity, a whisper of tension remained, the faint acknowledgement that mastery was continuous. Strength would not remain by accident, it would require daily vigilance, conscious alignment, and respect for the systems that sustained her. Muscles, metabolism, hormones, all demanded care, attention, and responsiveness, or their harmony could falter. The figure nodded, a motion that seemed to ripple through the horizon itself. You have faced shadows, echoes, flames, and silence. You have learned to sustain harmony under persistent pressure. Now, carry this knowledge into your world. Let it guide every choice, every step, every breath. And know this, the pulse of forever strength is within you, alive, responsive, and eternal, if you honor it. Liora felt a profound warmth spread through her core, radiating outward. Every guardian, muscle fibers repairing and strengthening, metabolic currents flowing efficiently, hormones balancing with precision, responded with a vivid, tangible presence. She was alive in every sense, strong, aligned, aware, and ready. The city around her shimmered and receded, the tower, the plaza, and every challenge folding back into memory. The horizon stretched endlessly, filled with the pulse of possibility. The figure's light softened, leaving Liora standing on solid ground, fully present, fully aware, and fully integrated with the lessons she had learned. She took a deep breath, muscles relaxed yet alive, metabolism humming with vitality, hormones steady and responsive. The guardians within her pulsed gently, a quiet orchestra of energy, repair, and balance. Liora realized that forever strength was not a destination, it was a living, breathing practice, a constant harmony that could carry her through any challenge, seen or unseen, and from the far reaches of the horizon, faint currents shimmered, promising challenges yet to come. Yet Liora no longer feared them. She had the pulse of gold, the lessons of every trial, and the mastery of her internal guardians. She was ready to face the world fully, alive, strong, and forever attuned to the harmony within herself. The horizon stretched endlessly, golden and alive, and Liora stepped forward, every pulse, breath, and motion resonating with the eternal rhythm of strength, balance, and vitality. And that's a wrap for today's journey into Forever Strong. Now I want to hear from you. Which audiobook do you think we should break down next to help supercharge your mindset and growth? Drop your suggestion in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Momentum Mind, and hit that notification bell so you never miss your next dose of mindset momentum.